Thank you, Senator Reid. Senator Wicker.
Mr. Chairman, these are two outstanding nominees. It's great to hear from them today. I want to ask about ship procurement. Congress authorized and appropriated $350 million each for the LHA-9 and LPD-31 in FY19. We provided these funds to accelerate construction of these two ships and to pay critical suppliers long lead time material that's needed in some cases 150 weeks before construction. General Berger, I've heard you say today that with the leadership of people like General Neller, we've largely recovered from some of the cuts we had to sustain. You mentioned first to fight being the role of the Marines, decisive power, and yet the recent OMB budget removed amphibious ship production from the FY20 budget proposal. The proposal would be to put the LPD procurement in 2021, LHA procurement in 2024. When it comes to first to fight and decisive power, General, can you explain to the committee in this unclassified setting how an LHA with an F-35B squadron or an LPD with high mobility artillery rocket system expands the effectiveness and utility of the U.S. amphibious forces? I think we have the flexibility and we have the capability and smarts to find a way to move money around and go ahead and stick with the plan that we enacted last year.
Sir, it's going to sound a bit parochial, but I don't believe there's any more versatile capability than an embarked Marine force on an amphibious ship. And our requirement, as agreed to by the Department of the Navy, is 38 amphib ships. That's the current amphibious ship requirement, 12 big decks and 26 LPDs and LSDs, or LPD Flight 2s.
And I might interject, that's the opinion of General Dunford, Secretary Spencer, and Secretary Gertz.
Correct, sir. And to answer your latter part of your question, Senator, what those four deployed Naval Expeditionary Forces, for example, F-35s on a big deck do, they are, I don't know of a more effective deterrent. There probably are equals, but I don't know of a more effective one. And as far as a contact force forward, that gives you the capability to present a deterrence force, and if the adversary chooses not to comply, then you can turn offensive very quickly.
Do you think we have the flexibility in the DoD budget to ensure that LPD and LHA procurement programs remain on track and that no funds from either LPD or LHA procurement can be taken for other purposes?
All I can tell you, Senator, is from the Marine Corps perspective, I know what the requirement is. And I also know that the Secretary and the CNO have a larger portfolio of requirements. Ships are part of that. So the best I can do as Service Chief, if confirmed, I think, is make sure the Secretary, the CNO understand what the Marine Corps needs, and then have the discussion about the greater needs of the Department of the Navy. Okay,
let me ask, I appreciate that emphatic statement, and I think that's helpful to the committee. Let me ask both of you then, and I'll begin with you, General. And the chairman alluded to this, the time we, during the previous 8 years, we had to deal with sequestration and continuing resolutions. What would be the effect this year on the requirements that we have and your ability to be first to fight and deliver lethality if we had to deal with a continuing resolution at the end of this fiscal year, or even worse, go back to sequestration, which is in the statute today. Unless we change the statute, we're back at sequestration. And we got a minute and a half. I'll start with you, General Berger, and then go with you, Admiral.
Sir, and I'll be brief. If it's a continuing resolution, based on my experience, commanders below us have to make hard decisions on what's in their training plan, and they'll have to probably delay some of those or cancel them. Procurements are going to be delayed. New starts you cannot do under a continuing resolution. And the worst part about it for us is the unpredictability. You don't know how many or how long the continuing resolution will last. So at best, you try to hold your head above water with what you've got. But what really happens is an erosion of readiness, and in jeopardy is procurement. If it's a BCA, sir, and very quickly, it's even more catastrophic.
And Admiral Moran.
Yeah, Senator, all to add to what General Berger articulated there, I would have, I'll definitely pile on with the stability of a capital-intensive force like the United States Navy and the Marine Corps is, with large contracts on large ships and submarines and aircraft. It really affects our vendor base, really affects industry. They need stability, they need predictability to be efficient, to hire appropriately, and then to be able to maintain our equipment is also affected by CRs, and most certainly under a BCA.
And that absolutely affects the recovery that the General was giving General Neller credit for largely affecting.
Yes, sir, that's correct.
Just if I could add just one final thought, sir. What would happen is, especially in the naval service, we would make sure the next deploying forces are ready to go. And we would triage everything else in the service to make sure they're ready to go. But readiness and the rest of the fleet non-deploying would start to fall off.
Thank you, sir, and thank you, Mr. Chair.